That's a clue as to who we have on today. That's a clue. I'll give you it again. Think about it. You got it. It's Brett Boles. Today, we have Brett Boles on the show. Now, I thought that the best way to start the pod was to write you a new song. That you guys are loving it. I thought the best way to do it was for me to write you a song and then be like, oh, okay, well, that's a new song, and that's what you think, okay, Brett Boles. And that song, while it sounds like Dear Theodosia, I added one little note. Brett talks about it. One note. You add one note in the middle of a phrase that changes everything. So if I did this, that one note is not in Dear Theodosia, so that just changed everything. It's an original song now. Make sense? Songwriting isn't that hard. I'll get you another one. I'm saying, what my point is, context dictates form. My point is, less is more. My point is, God is in the details. You know these. These are Sondheim's core pillars. We talk about them on the show today. In all seriousness, Brett Boles does this so much better than I do. Imagine. Brett Boles does this so much better than I do. He's a songwriter extraordinaire. He's most well known right now for giving you the MT, which he does all the time on TikTok, on Instagram, and he's wonderful. And he has, is Angel in the background of this? Say hi, Angelina. Yeah, there she is. You can stay there, I guess. No, back to Brett. So Brett is, he's huge on TikTok with over 400,000 followers and over 200,000 on Instagram. And he's giving you the MT being the musical theater T, where he tells you how some of your favorite musical theater pieces were crafted. These are Disney songs. These are Sondheim pieces. These are, Stephen Schwartz pieces, Lin-Manuel Miranda, all of it. And so she moved, but she's still in it. She's still in the background. Okay, you can stay. You can stay. Please, just stay. Don't distract our audience any further. He's, I think, a genius when it comes to finding all of this. And he's finding different angles of these pieces, things that you wouldn't even realize, things that in certain cases haven't been described by the composer. And that's what makes them really interesting. And he offers a program with the MT where it's a songwriter's program that he goes into detail on our podcast. He's also written original musicals of his own that we get to talking about, which is really exciting. And we didn't get to chat about this on our show, but Brett just announced that he is writing a book. That's right, a book called the Musical Theater Songwriter's Handbook, okay, helping you all write some musical theater songs. So I think for anyone who's a budding composer or a current composer working and lyricist, I think you'll really get a kick out of this episode. This is our first ever time having a composer, aside from me every week. And it was so revelatory. It was just like, I gained so much, and we learned so much. There was so much to take away from this episode, and I think that a lot of you will really, really love it. And I also want to mention his handles. On TikTok, he is at Brett Boles, and on Instagram, he is at the Brett Boles. So make sure you give him a follow and like his content and check it all out, because there's so much interesting stuff on there. This was an absolute treat, one of my favorite episodes. Today, I want to be like Brett Boles. What a chaotic intro. I want to be like you. 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 You. Welcome. Wait, hold on. Let me just my shirt was like. Okay. Yeah. No. I was like, oh, I'm a little crumpled. Welcome to I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes. Today, I want to be like Brett Boles.
I don't know.
Brett, thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
This is such a blast because I mean we've met a handful of times, but I see you on my TikTok and on my Instagram all the time, and you have so much knowledge to share, and I have so many questions for you. So I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Or I've just fooled everyone.
Yeah, right. Or that could be true too. So we start the podcast with the same question every time, and it is, who is your I want to be like you when you were a kid?
Oh, good question. Well, okay, so if we're going like with theater, because I started doing theater when I was, in early middle school. So, my idol was, this is going to sound a little silly growing up maybe, but was Frank Wildhorn for a long time.
Really?
Because I loved the Scarlet Pimpernel, I loved Jekyll and Hyde, and was like, I want to write shows like that when I grow up.
Right.
So it was Wildhorn for a long time, and it wasn't until later that sort of morphed to like Sondheim.
Sondheim,
yeah.
Yeah. How did you discover Wildhorn though? How did you even know about it?
My dad's a big musical theater fan, so
really?
He's like, "Hey, gotta listen to this show." So he, put in Scarlet Pimpernel one day, and I was like, "This is amazing! This is so good!"
Right.
That was my introduction.
That's interesting. And you're from Connecticut.
Yeah.
So did you come to New York often to see shows and whatnot?
Yes, we were in all the time. My family was very big musical theater family, so we were always in. We would do 2-show days. We would,
What was your first Broadway show that you saw?
Beauty and the Beast was my first Broadway show.
Wow.
I think
We've gotten that a handful of times. Yeah. How old were you?
I think I was 11 maybe.
Wow.
So yeah, and I was, it was when Terrence Mann was still in it, but I was too young to appreciate that I was seeing Terrence Mann. So that was my first show, followed quickly by Cats, which I won't speak about too much. Other than to say one of the cats was walking down the aisle and took one of my Sour Patch candies from my bag, and it scarred me for life.
That's pretty funny. That happened to my mom. I think my mom's first Broadway show was Cats, and she had came here from Russia, and she's like new to America, and like was like, oh, let's go see a Broadway show. And she went with Rima actually, and she went and she saw, and the cats were coming all down, and she's like 12, 13, and she's like, what is going on here?
It's a little strange, but
yeah. So you were doing theater in middle school too? You were in shows and whatnot? Oh, wow.
Big performer. Yeah.
Oh, give me some of your starring roles. Give me some of the...
Well, in middle school, I played Winthrop Peru in The Music Man. Yes, that was like my first role in any show was that.
Yeah.
And then...
Gary,
that's the one. There's still a video of me somewhere out there singing that ridiculous song.
We'll have to look out for it on TikTok.
Yep. And then I actually repeated the same show and the same role again in high school, my first year of high school. So I did 2 Music Mans back to back, playing Winthrop both times. I was a little redhead kid, so it was like it was a given.
Do you think you still know it?
Oh, I absolutely still know it. Absolutely, an octave down, but
Yeah, right.
But I played Tony in West Side Story. I played Billy in Anything Goes. I did Jekyll and Hyde. I played Jekyll and Hyde once.
Wow.
I did Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady.
My Fair Lady.
I've done Quixote and Man of La Mancha.
Wow.
I've done a lot.
Look at you.
A lot of.
I was gonna say these are great shows for high school.
Well, it wasn't only high school. That was after, but yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, you went to Ithaca.
I did.
Right? What was your major in Ithaca?
Music composition.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
So when did you start playing piano and your musicianship history start?
Well, I've always been playing. We had a piano in my first couple of years were spent in a condo, and my dad had a piano, and he played a little bit. So I would, since I was 2, I've been plunking. I started taking formal lessons when I was 8 and hated them.
Really?
I loved to play, hated to practice. And the teacher, I just did not like my piano teacher. It took me a long time to find a teacher that I really liked, which was, that was the secret sauce, finding a good teacher. Because I had no interest in playing classical piano. It was did not interest me at all. I used to write, believe it or not, country tunes because I grew up with country songs. My mom was a big country music fan. We grew up on a farm, so and which is not maybe so much of a shocker because I think country songs and musical theater songs are very closely related in the fact that they're very storytelling type songs. Yeah. So. And then I found a piano teacher who actually was our piano tuner when I was in high school. Big, enormous guy, chain smoker, but he was a great guy. And he taught me how to play chords and how to read chord symbols on a chart and a lead sheet. Right. And that opened so many doors to me. And all of a sudden it was I could play things that I actually wanted to play without having to try to get every single note right. So that's when I really started to write
Were you reading as well? Like reading sheet, he was teaching you how to read sheet music as well?
Yeah, it was more like I had already developed the skills to be able to read music at like an intermediate level, but like once I learned how to analyze like vertical harmony and go, oh, that's a C major 7 chord, oh, that's an F minor 7 chord, like then all of a sudden the world was open, because then I could improv things, and I could I could fake my way through a musical theater book without having to play every single note written on the page. And that opened my ears and my brain to being able to write that kind of music. So that was a huge
So how old were you when you decided that you were going to pursue it professionally?
Well, when I was going to make the decision about where I wanted to go to school, I was torn between being a musical theater performer and being a writer and a composer. And there were a couple schools that I auditioned at for musical theater performance, but I had an interview at Ithaca College for a composition with a guy named Greg Woodward, who was my professor at Ithaca for 4 years, my mentor, my best friend. He's now the president of the University of Hartford. We had it was supposed to be like a half-hour interview in his office when I went, and it turned out to be over 2 hours we spent in his office just jamming and playing, and we just hit it off. So, and I was lucky that he was a musical theater guy. Like he had music directed in the past. He had played for musical theater productions. He absolutely loved it. And so after that interview, he walked out. My parents were like sitting on the bench outside his office, and he goes, he has to come here. I don't care what it takes. We'll get him a private jet. We'll get him a car. I don't care what it takes. He's coming here. So that sort of sealed the deal for me. And plus, it was a really great musical theater school too. So in my mind, I was like, ooh, I can write a musical while I'm here and maybe get it performed by a musical theater department, and that would be great. So that's what I did.
That's what you did?
Yeah.
So what was the musical that you wrote in college that you had...
It was an adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo, which was my dad's favorite book, which Frank Wildhorn has since adapted and run overseas. But that was great, and it was starring Jeremy Jordan. That was because we graduated together in the same class. So
I didn't realize that. I guess that makes sense. Aaron Tveit too, right? It was in that same realm.
He was a year ahead of me, and he was only in school part of the time when I was there, for very short, and then he went on tour. He came back with a show called Owl Creek, which they performed at Ithaca in the Black Box for us, and then he was off working again and never came back.
Wow.
So
You just have to settle for Jeremy Jordan.
Yeah.
Wow, Jeremy Jordan performing your original material. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I mean, that makes sense, but I didn't put two together. That's very interesting.
Yeah, we all knew he was gonna
blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was never a question.
So I want to ask you a little bit about BMI.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, BMI Musical Theater, or Lehman Engel Musical Theater Workshop, is a workshop for budding composers, but it's had like this remarkable, I'm not going to say success rate, because more like the people who've been a part of it.
Yeah.
It's like Lynn Ahrens and Lin-Manuel Miranda and Alan Menken and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the lyricist from Chorus Line. That's a class act. That's what it's about. But can you look it up for me? Because I'm
Marvin Hamlish?
No, the lyricist.
Didn't Marvin write both for that? No, am I wrong?
I don't think so. Because a class act is about the lyric. We just heard Randy talk about it, but I can't remember his name.
I think
right
I would
now.
know this, but I don't.
I can't remember his name.
We'll cut this
per
part
Chorus
out.
Line. Yeah.
Edward Clement.
Edward Clement.
Cleban.
Yes.
Ed Cleban, of course. Of course.
And a class act is about all that. And he was a part of BMI as well. But yeah, tell me about how long after college you were involved in BMI and how you got in.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2007 from Ithaca. I spent 3 years sort of writing on my own, and then I decided to apply to BMI. I applied as a composer and a lyricist, because you can apply as either or as both. And you send in a few songs, and then if they decide to move you on to the audition round, you come and you audition for them in person. So I did. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from the steering committee saying, hey, we want you to be a part of this as a lyricist, which at first was like, this is so stupid to even admit this, but I was like, oh man, like I was bummed, because I was like, wait, but my degree is in composition. Why don't you want me to, like, I can write music, I promise. But what ended up happening was it was the best thing that could have happened, because what I didn't really understand was how to write lyrics. And I learned so much about lyric writing from BMI that I will forever be grateful to them for saying, no, we know you can write music. Come to us and learn about the craft of lyric writing.
Right.
And it was the best thing that could have happened.
So what does the workshop entail? How long is it?
So there are two full years. So the way the first year works is there are a bunch of different assignments, and they pair composers and lyricists together for different assignments. So each assignment you work with somebody different.
Right.
They select that person. So I got to work with, it's 7 assignments, at least it was when I was there. It was 7 assignments throughout the course of the first year.
Right.
And really interesting stuff. Like they have you write, well, I don't know how many of these are still part of the workshop, but when I was there, it was like the first song you had to write was either a sad hello or a happy goodbye song to kind of like learn how to write this sort of, dichotomy thing going on. And then we had to write a song for Blanche Dubois' character in Streetcar.
Oh, cool.
We had to write a comedy song for Angels in America. So it's like really challenging stuff. And then we did do a musical scene for Death of a Salesman. So it was really interesting.
So you were all writing these songs and then or was it like you got the one assignment and someone else got...
It was all the same assignment. So we would all do one assignment together. We would get up in front of the class and present and get feedback from the moderators and from our class. Wow. And then we move on to the next assignment. So it was just that was the whole first year, and I learned a lot. And then at the end of the first year, they tell you, okay, so now you're going to decide who you want to work with in this class. And the second year, you work on developing a full-length musical. For the entire second year. So it's like you have to, you got to choose your partner wisely. And then at the end of the second year, you present 20 minutes from that full musical for the BMI steering committee, and then they decide whether you are done or whether they move you on to advanced, which is basically the rest of your life.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So what is one thing, if you could give me like one big thing that you took away that you still use today when it comes to lyric writing from BMI?
I think the biggest thing is economy of language and how to say a lot in a short space of time.
Right.
And also, walking the line between being poetic and saying things in a unique, meaningful way, and also not confusing your audience or leaving your audience too far behind. So there's a really delicate balance in lyric craft there, and BMI did a really great job in preparing us to do that.
Right. So were you working with how many different composers then did you get the chance to work with?
The first year, seven different people.
Wow.
One of them was, Natalie Tenenbaum.
Right.
Who I then partnered with the second year to write our adaptation of Benjamin Button. So.
Right. Can you talk to me about the difference that you find in working with collaborators versus doing things solo?
Yes. What a world of difference. And I've worked in just about every, capacity you can work on this stuff. So the nice thing about working alone is that you have complete control over everything.
Yeah.
Everything is yours. So, and the bad thing about working alone is that you have complete control over everything, which is sometimes not a great thing. I have written a show that was in the New York Musical Festival back when that was a thing, where I had done the book, the music, and the lyrics all myself, like all three of myself. And after that process, I told myself never again. I'm more than happy to write music and lyrics and do like the full score and have somebody else write the book, or but I never want to do all three again. Working with somebody else on the score part of things is really fascinating, and I love doing that because, especially if they're good, you have someone else who is constantly pushing you to be better, and who sees things in the work that you don't always see because you're so close to it. And once you develop a way of working with someone, it can be really, really fulfilling to work that way. But it's almost like it is. It's a relationship, Mm-hmm. Like you have to know each other well enough to be able to be honest and to not sugarcoat things.
Right.
And you also have to know how each other works best. So, like, for example, Natalie, as beyond brilliant composer and pianist, is, at least for our relationship, she preferred that I write lyrics first. And that's not always possible because a lot of lyricists don't really understand how rhythm works. And so they fall into a trap of writing kind of the same thing every time. But as a musician, I understand that aspect of it. So I'm able to craft lyrics that can be set in many different ways musically. So I would write, and then I would send her stuff, and then she would send me back something. So we almost never wrote in the same room together.
Wow.
But we would just kind of communicate back and forth, and it worked out really well. And every now and then, if we were in rehearsal for something, we'd be in the same room and have to work something out together, and that was always fine. It was great.
Yeah.
It's if given the choice, I'd rather collaborate with someone.
Yeah. What can you tell me is the difference then in writing lyrics under the pretense of knowing music and following? So I guess what I'm asking is, like, when I think about poetry or I think about lyric writing, there's a lot of what I think about naturally, and I think what a lot of, like, conventionally what people will think about is a structure. So you follow this certain amount of syllables and it all kind of fits. But when you look at some of the best lyricists and lyrics that you've seen in musicals or in poetry, they don't necessarily fit that structure. When you're writing lyrics first, what does your music sensibility do for you that assists that?
Great question. So Sondheim, I'm going to bring up Sondheim.
Yeah, do it. We're big Sondheim geeks.
Okay. So Sondheim, one of his three tenets of lyric craft is content dictates form, right? Right. So, and you tell that somebody like, great, what the hell does that even mean? And so in this case, what that means is what is the content of the song supposed to be? So what is this? Say it's say we're doing a character establishment song, right? So we're introducing Rose, Mama Rose from Gypsy to the world, right? So like here's this character. Now, how does Rose speak? And that's a decision that, as a lyricist, and obviously in conjunction with a book writer if you're working, but you have to make that decision. So is Rose going to speak in flowing 6/8 time? Da 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 do do da da da. Probably not. This is a tough broad, like she. Right. So her lyrics, the rhythm of her speech is going to be a lot punchier, and that's the decision that Sondheim made, right? So when he's writing the lyrics to Some People, for instance, and you look at the way, and now, sorry, excuse me.
No, you're good.
Sondheim would, a lot of the time for Gypsy especially, he would send Julie Stein recordings of him speaking in rhythm, the lyrics that he wrote, so that Julie would then go ahead and set them. And sometimes they work the other way. But when you listen to that song, you have such strong hits on those important words. Some people can get a thrill. And that's how Rose speaks. And so in that way, the content dictates the form that the song takes, because you have to take into account how the character behaves and how they speak.
Right.
Which really makes it easy for the actor to act it.
Absolutely. It gives an actor so much more to play with in terms of, meat and stuff to draw from. So, yeah.
And I thought about that too when you mentioned economic language is less is more. That's the epitome of less is more. So I should mention it just because it's worth mentioning as a preface for all of this. Is those are the three tenets: is less is more, God is in the details, and content dictates form. And you know what? While we're here, we might as well talk about God is in the details, because there's one of your most famous TikToks is Giants in the Sky, where you and I'll post like a link to it or something, because you very in detailed short form, which is amazing. We'll talk about that too. But Giants in the Sky, you detail where the God is in the details in there. And you mention about how it starts off in, what was it, A flat? Key of A flat? I can't remember.
Yes.
And then there's one, and then it goes off to an F.
Yeah.
And then when he mentions in between, and on in between, he wounds up merging the two keys.
Yeah.
Now, that, when I thought about it, and when we mentioned God is in the details in that moment, do you think that it's one of those things that is an accident? Or is it one of those things that is intentional? Like, how much of it is like God is in the details and also Sondheim informing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is the eternal question, right? It's like, do these people really think about this when they're writing? And the only answer that I can give honestly is sometimes yes and sometimes no. And without speaking to a writer directly about a very specific moment, there's no way to ever know. But being a writer and having done this stuff myself, the best answer I can give is that we spend so much time in our early years, in our early careers, making all of these very, very conscious decisions that at some point, a lot of it tends to become intuitive. So it's like someone who's been studying math for 20 years and they can do the problem in their head without having to show you exactly how every step is done on a piece of paper. And sometimes the choices are very conscious and in the moment where you're thinking, yes, F is in between A flat or E flat and G flat and so whatever. But not always. In this particular case, I don't know. I don't know. But I would say that his level of skill and attention to detail just means that stuff comes intuitively to him. And so it very well may have been intuitive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's this thing also where if you see this so much, especially in that show, where it's so much so, if your mind is in that tunnel vision, he talks about this so much, where he said, he had that quote where he said, if I tried to write a song for Follies, a new song, and it came out like Passion, because I was writing Passion, that if your mind is in there, you could very well accidentally do something and you go, yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt right. And what felt right in detail could be explained perfectly.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask is, do you find yourself ever when you're writing, you write something and then you go back to it and you go, well, I think I was neglectful of the things that that I'm trying to input.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the thing that I tell to songwriters that I teach as well, is it's great to learn these skills and to practice these skills, but also at the end of the day you have to remember that as a writer, like, you have an intuition and you don't want to stanch the flow of that intuition. So I tend to, at this point, I'm confident enough in the skills that I've built up that I trust my gut when I go to write something. And then it's in the rewriting phase when I'll go back later and I'll look, all right, how can I tweak this to make sure that everything is working prosodically meaning everything is working together to tell the same story, right? That the way that I want it to. And sometimes it naturally happens that way because, I've been doing this long enough that my intuition generally leads me in the right direction. But there are times when I go, oh, this could be better. If I use this chord here instead of this chord here, that might help this moment land a little bit stronger. So. Right.
You mentioned, and I read a couple of interviews of yours where you mentioned this, and I'm going to mention it because you just mentioned it, the concept of prosody. Talk about what that means, what prosody means exactly.
Yeah, so prosody means essentially that every element of a song, the rhythm, the melody, the lyrics, the harmony, they're all working together as one to tell the same dramatic story.
Yeah, right. And and it comes from poetry originally, like that theory, but it's musical theater is poetry. So they say when it's good. And there are times where, like, honestly, like, where like terms like that or like little blanket things or words like that will help you be able to, like, sometimes there are times where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing something, but I don't know what I'm doing. And then if you put a term to it, you go like, oh, okay.
Right. Well, I was talking to Mark Shaman, and he was like, I mentioned the word to him, and he's like, I don't know what that means. I was like, it means, and I explained it to him. He's like, oh, there's a word for that? He's like, I just thought I was doing, Like, there's a word
it's true.
for it.
I even think about it when I learned what alliteration was. When we were reading, Finishing the Hat, and I learned what alliteration was, and I was like, oh, that's what. I was like, I know it. I see that all the time, but I didn't know that's what that meant.
There's a word for it. There's a tool.
Okay, so I want to talk about Forever Man. Forever Man is a musical that you wrote in 2012. So tell me a little bit about it, and
yes. Okay. So, if you look at the body of my work, you will find that I am pretty single-mindedly obsessed with this idea of time and how time affects people's lives. So that was it's.
It really is,
yeah, time is like.
It's always been fascinating to me. So, Forever Man was sort of an exploration of what would it actually mean to live forever, and so. I toyed around with that idea. I wrote a version of the show or a draft of the show before I spent time in the BMI workshop. And then it was after I got into BMI that the show was accepted to the festival. So I did some work on it. So like half the show is like pre-BMI and half the show is post-BMI. So it has this like, ooh, that's not a very well-crafted song, but this one is. So it's this weird kind of thing that sort of, straddles the chasm of two different parts of my life. But it was a learning experience for me, having to do all three. Actually, for the Count of Monte Cristo, I did all three parts too. But I also had like I had people helping me, professors and whatnot, but this was like my first real like solo go at it.
Yeah.
And it was a completely original story, so it wasn't an adaptation.
I was going to say, what was it based on? Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. And originals are very, very difficult to do, especially when you don't really know what you're doing, which at that point, I think there's a certain level of chutzpah that comes with, a necessary level of chutzpah when you have to think, I got this, I can do this. Because if you know what you're actually up against, you probably never do it.
Yeah.
So if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been like, nah, it's probably best that I don't attempt this. But I didn't, and so I forged ahead and did it anyway.
And that's honestly probably for the best.
It was for the best. Absolutely was.
What I was going to ask you is, how much are you thinking about in crafting, especially an original musical, and based on the things that you've learned, crafting a story, where you're going, where you have to land, how long you want it to be, these types of like story vehicles, story structure, things like that. How much are you thinking about that?
A lot.
Yeah.
And my way of doing this is a little bit different than, everybody's way of doing it is a little bit different. I generally don't go in. Now, look, it's been a while since I've done a completely original show from scratch, but
sure.
I'm not a big outliner. Like, let me outline every single moment of this show before I start writing it. I tend to gravitate towards certain story moments. So, for me in Forever Man, for example, the first song I wrote for that was a song called Sons of Adam, where the two guys decide they're going to drink the elixir of life and become immortal. And so to me, that was like, ooh, what does that song sound like? And so I gravitated towards that moment, and I wrote that moment. And then I was like, ooh, I have this other idea for a moment where, and I know it's an act 2 because it's later on when the lead character is sort of like soliloquizing. That's It's now a word, about, what it's meant for him to see everybody he loves die and all that stuff, and it's called The End of All Things. And so that was a moment that I gravitated towards. And then I tend to find that once I have those sort of key moments completed, I tend to have a better sense of like where that takes me in terms of story. And and so what I tend to do, even with shows that are adaptations of other source material, I'll write these moments, and then I'll write my way into that moment and then out of that moment. And so I have all of these moments with like things on either side of them. And then when I put that whole thing together, it gives me like a map, and I can see where are the holes in this map, what needs to be filled in. And so it's tended to work fairly well for me. But people work differently, so I don't know.
But you are considering the idea, because this is the thing that's and this is not shouting anybody out or anything, but it's just, this is the thing that happens a lot, and it's a common misconception about musicals, is that story, song. Story, song.
Yeah.
And in the best musicals, that's so the opposite of the case.
It has to be the opposite or it doesn't work.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you are thinking about, I imagine, about in filling in this gap in what you're talking about. You're thinking about, well, that's a crucial point to the story, there should be a song there, or is that, or how are you fixing in those, especially when you were writing the book, or
yeah well, it's always the choice you have to make, what's dialogue and what's sung, right? And without going too deep into the weeds in musical theater history here, we had Showboat with Hammerstein and Kern, which was pretty much sung through, the precursor to the American Book Musical, which was Oklahoma in 1943. Yeah. And that, that changed everything, because now the songs, as opposed to being, jukebox musicals where the story was written around songs that had already been created, like now we're writing songs specifically to advance the story. And so, in a musical, a song should be doing one of four things. Like, we're either introducing a character, we're advancing the plot, we're providing comic relief, or some kind of necessary break from the dramatic action of what's going on, or we're building a world or setting a place. And if the song isn't doing one of those four things, then it probably doesn't belong in the show. And So yeah, and then the choice is like, well, what's spoken versus what's sung, and that 4 different writers will come up with 4 different moments to musicalize it. So it's just the way it works. And as artists, we're all different. We're all going to gravitate towards different things. There are certain formulaic things that just work in a musical, right? Like you establish your main character with a song. Like that's just the thing. That's a convention. It works. It's always worked. It's how we get on the side of that character to root for them. Sometimes, most of the time, it's that character singing the song. Sometimes it's not. Like in Guys and Dolls, Nathan Detroit's character establishment song is not sung by Nathan Detroit. It's sung by the ensemble. Right. So that happens too. But yeah, there's an intuition that different writers will find different moments. But at the end of the day, if you can take a song away and the story still works, then that song doesn't need to exist. So don't write it, or write something else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's funny, and you mentioned that the rules. It feels like the quote unquote rules of musical theater only work with what's timeless. Like you said, there's some things that just work, and it's only with what's timeless, because then something comes along and you go, that was completely different, and that one rule, that thing that we've been doing that was timeless, is now put in the past, and then we're moving forward and doing something else. Yeah, that I Want song even still works.
The thing is, music. It's if you step back and you think about what a musical actually is, that like here are these people who are living, truthfully under imaginary circumstances on a stage, suddenly break out into song, and we're supposed to buy that? Like it's ridiculous. On the face of it, it's ridiculous. But somehow there are people obviously who don't appreciate musicals, and fine, it'll never matter to them. But for the majority of audiences, like we don't only expect it, but like we lean into it. Like we all agree, when we step into this sacred space, we all agree that we're going to suspend our disbelief and we're going to fall into this world, whatever it is, and we're going to go along for the ride. And music has a way of speaking to us in a way that's very different from language. It's connective tissue in a way that spoken language just can't be, and it's heightened, right? There's a sense of something heightened when the music comes in, when the orchestra swells, and we segue from dialogue to music. It's like it lifts you in a really almost like spiritual way. And so, in order to talking about an I Want song or an I Am song or character establishment song, put it under the larger umbrella term, like when we hear that protagonist sing for the first time, we need that in order to be invested in them. The music causes us to be invested in them, and that's just the convention that we've all decided is going to be the convention. Like this is what it is, and we've all agreed upon that. It's like a cultural, societal, communal understanding, and that's what we've all agreed on. That's the contract we've all signed, and we go in, and there it is.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And go for it.
No. Do you have something?
Yeah, no, 100% about the music. Have you ever written a musical that you were like, this would be better as a play?
Oh, good question. Not yet, but I'm sure one day I probably will. Yeah. I find myself, if I'm looking at some source material for, as an idea, somebody's sending me an idea for a musical or something, I have a pretty strong feeling right away whether it sings or not.
Yeah.
And I find that somebody else might look at it and say, I don't think so at all. But I find that my intuition in that sense has not yet led me astray. And this also brings up another. I'm talking too much.
No. Maybe. This is the point. This is the point.
Okay. All right. So
do it. Yeah.
This brings up another issue of what we call why musicals. Like, where if something in its current medium is so wonderful, like leave it alone. Like it doesn't need. We don't, unless you have another way to spin it or something to add to it, or you feel like it will function better or much differently in another medium, like just leave it alone. And I think that's a problem with some of the shows that tend to get made now, because look, we all, producers, it's a business, right? Everybody wants to make money, and that's just the way it is. But you take certain properties and you're like, this was so good the way it is. Like, why are we trying to take this and make it something that it doesn't want to be? It doesn't need to be, and it doesn't really want to be. Whereas taking source material that has a lot of great things about it, but is flawed in some way, is usually great fodder for a musical, because you can then say something different about it.
Or at least has your voice, like
sure.
That's the thing, especially with musicals, with the trend towards IP with movies, where it feels almost like you just want to take the movie and just put it on stage and make songs and just get it there so it can be in that medium. And business-wise, that makes sense on paper, but to not have your own voice in it, then the audiences go, I don't know why I didn't feel it the way I did with the movie, because the movie, the writers had their own voice. It was strong.
Yes, yeah. And this is one of the things that that they teach us in BMI, and then I teach my writers now. It's like, if you're gonna adapt a source material, you have to know that source material inside and out. You have to love it. You have to hold it up against your heart, and then you have to throw it on the ground and stomp on it before you go to write your show, because it does not work to just take what's there verbatim and like musicalize the script. Like that does not work. Yeah. You need to capture the essence of the moment without just trying to like make a song out of dialogue that's already there. It just there was something that will be so inauthentic about that, because you're missing the voice of the people who are actually writing the thing, and it's so important. And I find that the best musicals that are based on other source material do that. Like when you go to see it, you're like, yeah, I understand that this is based on this thing, but there are moments maybe in that show that don't exist in the original source material. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're staying true to the essence of what the story is. You're staying true to the themes, and the characters. You gotta throw the source material away at some point and make it this new thing that it wants to be.
There's so many cases where the majority of the audience, where shows like that become gigantic, and that's like Wicked.
Yeah,
right. And Wizard of Oz has never been on Broadway.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Right. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, what's your favorite that you've seen that you feel like has adapted really well from a different medium to musical theater?
Oh, that's another really great question. I mean, almost everything is an adaptation to something else at this point.
Right. Yeah.
What do I think has been really successful? Good question.
Because it's to the point of the idea that just because we're mentioning these ideas, and I wanted to clear this up for what it's worth. Just because we're mentioning this, that this happens a lot in these adaptations, like it doesn't mean that taking a movie and making it a musical is a no-no, is a bad thing. The adaptation idea is, because you hear it all the time. People are always like, everything that's a musical, was a movie before now, and or it's a dupe, or it's this, and you go, well, yeah, but it's not the idea of transforming a movie into a musical isn't the issue. The issue becomes the why. Becomes the why are you doing it? Because if you look at like Passion, that's a movie. You know what I mean? That was a movie. The Band's Visit is a movie that was a beautiful musical. Dogfight, like those are examples of movie. People didn't even know they were,
Yeah, at the risk of expounding too much on Sondheim here, I think some of the most successful of these are the fairy tales that get different spins. So like Into the Woods, for example, it's a bunch of fairy tales that most of us know or grew up with, but you can't watch that show and go, oh, I've read this exact book before. Like there's something else that is in there that doesn't exist in that original source material.
Right. Right.
That just it makes it clear like why they wrote it. It's not just a retelling of the Cinderella story. It's not that. And the way all those characters then sort of intersect. And I think unfortunately sometimes these musicals that have they've made their way into the canon, and they've become just like part of legend and like the things that we just take for granted, when you really look at them and you break down the craft, it's like discovering them all over again. Like, this is like, they had to think of this. Like, it wasn't just something that existed. It's like you have to think of that bum 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 bum. Like, you have to think of that bean theme, and like how are you going to utilize that bean theme throughout the course of the entire show to like form a cohesive score, and like how is that going to translate from character to character and cross over from story to story. And you know, you have these two princes singing agony with each other, and like both you know, it's like one of the funniest songs in musical theater. Like these are things that we take for granted, I think, now. And this is one of the reasons I do what I do, is because I want to draw attention to like the fact that somebody had to think of this. This doesn't just happen. And I that is one of my favorites anyway, in terms of like, you know, adaptations. And
yeah, for sure.
I had a moment there where I was like, literally, I was going to say what you were exactly. I was going to tell a story about that exactly. I'm hearing you say it. I'm like, that's in my head. We were. Look, I Made a Hat. I was just going to say this. Yeah. When we had read Look, Into the Woods was so ingrained that by the time I found out about it, the movie was about to come out, and I was like, okay, this show has just been a thing. That when we had read it, and he's saying, we're reading the cut songs, and we're reading him going, why it was such a risk to give Hello Little Girl not only that spin, but to give Cinderella a perspective, to be like, what is she thinking? Yeah. Is it now we're going to give that lyric, which is not to decide, and giving her a decision to actually make. And me going, producers had to read that and go, well, it gave me that perspective of the first people seeing it, going, this is different.
Yeah. Well, we had Ken Davenport on the show recently, and he just posted this TikTok that he posted it after we had him on, but he posted this thing that was like, oh, I just got out of a meeting with some investors, and they were saying to me, hey, you know what, listen, like, we love your ideas and all that, but just come back to us when you have the next Hamilton.
I saw that one.
And he was like, well, I want you to know that if I had proposed Hamilton to your table right now, you wouldn't have said yes to Hamilton when Hamilton wasn't Hamilton, you know? Yep. So I think that's an interesting perspective. Yep. I want to mention the thing that you said about when you're teaching, you build all this up, you create all of this knowledge to then throw it away. And we learn that all the time, right? You go into a song and you're singing the song, you're going to an audition and you're like, my objectives and my this, and whatever. But then in that moment, that is the thing that you should not be thinking about, because it's the thing that as a human being, we're not always thinking about. Right. And I think that it also applies to the idea of text painting when you talk about, like, I think about Carousel and I think about If I Loved You. And there's that whole flowery moment, and it sets this beautiful scene where you know exactly where you are, you understand so much about it. And also, I don't necessarily think that Rodgers and Hammerstein were like, well, this is text painting, wait till I show you this part, you know, rather being like, what if we did this? And that what if became a term, you know.
And it's funny you bring up that bring up Rodgers and Hammerstein, because there's an interview that Rodgers did shortly after Hammerstein died. I just did a video for the Rodgers and Hammerstein Foundation for Rodgers' birthday using this interview clip. And he's explaining to the interviewer about writing Surrey with the French on top. And so he goes, ba-dum-bum-bum-bum, the Surrey's going along, bum-bum, ba-da-dum. Like maybe it hits a little speck of dirt or something in the road. And he's like, that's just what we do. And I was like, oh my God, he's giving the MT. But before I was like, this is it. This is so cool. He's like, it's just, he's like, it's just what we do. It's just how we think. It's just what, he's like, well, you're not necessarily conscious of it in the moment, but like, yeah, when you're writing something like that, or I'm as jumpy as a puppet on a string, you do those things. Like, that's just what we do as writers. Like, that's our job. We're not doing our job if we're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Why one of the look, I get trolls sometimes for a lot of reasons, and I don't care. Most of them, they roll out right off my back. But the ones that bother me the most are like, this isn't real. Like, nobody thinks about this stuff. This is like my English teacher telling me why the curtains are blue. I'm like, no, it's different than that. It's not the same.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It is true. Yeah.
There are certain things where I find within the level of detail that you can go with when I'm writing, where I go, is anybody going to notice this? And I start to realize that sometimes, at least in my case, if I'm asking the question, it's usually no.
Yeah.
And that 90% of the time, I don't have to ask. I'm going to go, they might not, but it could invoke that emotion, and that emotion is what is driving this character, and this character was driving the plot,
Absolutely.
and now it's going in that trickle. So if you care about the plot, although you're not consciously saying that was the thing,
Right.
you could very well get connected right to it, and that's where content in text form can go right into God is in the details. Because right when you build those details out, it all goes into the plot anyway.
Well, the thing becomes, who cares? You know, like, it's just like, what? Because I'm saying, like, if you're writing something and you're going, like, oh, well, I'm a little concerned that no one's going to notice that I did this, then you're writing it for the wrong reason, right? It's not, the intention is not, I'm putting an Easter egg in here, will you find it? Yeah, look at me. The intention is, this is what I genuinely think is best. If you happen to notice that I did it and why I did it, cool. But that's not, I'm not here to, like, reveal my secrets. I'm here to just tell a...
It's there for people who want to look deeper and want to find those things. And, you know, the thing about musical theater is that everything goes by in time, right? And this is why lyrics are different from poetry. Poetry is meant to be read over and over again at the reader's own pace. But lyrics don't do that. They exist in time. So you have to write such that an audience can understand the story and get through the thing on first listen, on first pass. But there's no reason why you can't add more layers to that for people who want to look and dig deeper and leave things there to find. I mean, especially if they're helping you build character, if they're helping you, create a sound world, or like the DSE Ray in Sweeney Todd, kind of hold the score together.
Right.
I mean, is your average listener gonna pick up on the fact that that Mrs. Lovett sings do Mr. Todd and it's the DSE Ray in reverse? Like, no, nobody's gonna pick up on that. But it's there, and it's there for a reason, and it's really cool, and it's character building, and somebody who wants to go back and find that stuff can go back and find that stuff and have an even greater appreciation for
Exactly. And an inspiration as an actor, especially for someone
of
playing
course.
Mrs. Lovett, you go like, because I don't know, but you would imagine that something like that Angela Lansbury probably knew, and it informed something, or even if it's one choice, it changed things.
Yeah.
And the opposite is so true. And that's why you're talking about the acting of it, and I'm going, when a lyric is so set in stone, the poetry, like you said, you can read at your own pace. When even a play, I can have my own interpretation of a monologue and have the almost complete freedom. With musicals, when a lyric isn't easy to understand for the audience and the actor, now I have to make it up. I have to do almost their job. I have to justify why this lyric that maybe wasn't thought out or doesn't seem to be justified in this song or this scene. I have to go, okay, what can I bring to it myself, because there's not enough.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about the MT. So talk to me about how this idea came to you, and what was first, chicken or the egg, social media or the idea of the MT?
The idea was first. So I had always, since the advent of social media, been very, very bad about using it in any real capacity. And I had a discussion once. I was doing a cabaret in North Carolina, and I was talking to Michael Moritz, who at that point was just starting to blow up in the industry, and he had his Instagram going, and at that point I had enough. I was like, Michael, I don't understand, like what am I gonna post, like what I had for breakfast? Like, nobody cares about that. Like, I don't know what, like, I have no use for it. Like, I don't understand how to use this thing. And he was very nice about it, but he was basically like, you'll figure it out. Like, at some point you'll figure it out. And so, it was, maybe 6 or 7 years later when I finally figured it out. But what happened was, I was a public school teacher, right, for 5 years, and my kids were all using TikTok, and I didn't really know what it was, other than people were dancing and doing weird things on camera. But it was like, that was my extent of knowledge on TikTok. And then the world shut down, right? And theater wasn't really an available option to people anymore. And I was feeling very creatively stifled, because like I couldn't even be in the classroom most of the time when that stuff started happening. And so it was a shower thought, where I went, I wonder, it was like a light bulb moment. I thought, why? I said, as a writer, I need to have a social media presence, because if I want to know that I've got a base of people here who care about what I have to say, so that if I ever release something, or if I have a show coming up, like, there's going to be an audience there. And then the thought was, well, what do I give to them that I can do on an almost daily basis and not really ever run out of content. And then the thought occurred to me, well, why don't I explain to people because I felt like I was sort of uniquely positioned as an educator, as a songwriter, and as a performer to sort of deliver this kind of content. And it was something I'd never seen before. I was like, I wonder, maybe people would be interested in knowing why the songs they like move them the way that they do from a songwriter's perspective, you know? And I thought maybe a couple hundred people might be interested in learning something about that. And so right around the first of the year in 2021, I started, I made the first video on TikTok, not having any clue how any of it worked. And the rest, I guess.
What was your first video?
Well, the very first video I made was like an introduction to like, what is this series going to be? And then I think my first actual video was For Forever from Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, interesting.
I think that was my first one. Yeah. And people seem to really enjoy it. And
400,000 followers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. 400,000 followers later, here we are. When did you start to notice, oh, this is building up some traction? I'm finding an audience here.
You know, it happened fairly quickly. And I think that was a combination of a lot of things. I think one, there are a lot of people out there who really enjoy musical theater and Broadway. I think also it was the timing, because things like that were just starting to like, it was at the front end of it. Mm-hmm. So, and people were on their phones all the time because they couldn't do anything else. So really in the first few weeks, I mean, there were a few thousand people following, and then it just sort of exponentially grew from there. I mean, there were times obviously where, you know, things were slow or I would not post for a while. And
sure.
But yeah, the more validation you get from people who are like, I want more of this, like, I love this, I want more, the more you want to give people, because you see that it's having an impact. And my students would always be like, how many followers do you have today, Mr. Boles? Like, how many? So that was always like a thing. So yeah, but it grew pretty quickly, and pretty quickly I knew like, oh, there's something special here. And it was just one of those things where everything fell into place in a really, I want to say easy, for lack of a better word, in a really easy way. And I was teaching at the time, so most of my videos, my early videos at least, were posted in between classes, or, you know, right when school got out, I would go to the piano at the end of the day and I'd record a video real quick and post it.
Wow.
Because that was all the time I had. You know, I was so busy,
right,
running, you know, a choral program with 175 kids in it, and that was the time I had to do it. So it was like, real quick, think of an angle. Blah, 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 okay, do it.
Did you have these things? I mean, it sounds like a silly question because you studied for so long, but did you have these things prepped? Like, did you know that, like, how did you, I guess I'm asking, it's a similar question. Sorry. It's a similar question, like the chicken or the egg thing. It's like, did you listen to For Forever and go like, oh, that would be a good video? Or did you already know that there was something in there and then made a video about it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, so that one, I think, so here's what tends to happen for most of these things. Secret time. For most of them, not all of them.
Exclusive. It's an exclusive.
Oh my God. Spilling the tea. For real. So for most of these things, so like For Forever, for example, I wanted to do a show that at that time, that show was, you know, it was a little bit more in the zeitgeist than it is now. But you know, I wanted to do a show that was pretty popular, especially amongst the crowd that was using TikTok at the time.
Right, of course.
Which at that time was a lot of young people. So what I did was I said, all right, I want to do something from Dear Evan Hansen. And I always loved the song For Forever. I never looked at it terribly closely, but I was like, I want to do something with it. Let me look at the song and see if I can come up with some kind of angle. So I just did like a real-time analysis of the song, you know, before I recorded the video. And I went, oh, that's really interesting, because that rhythm is really... So then it was like, it's not something that I had already picked up on just from listening to the score from before. I just looked, what would usually happen is I would decide what song I wanted to do, sometimes I would go, oh, I get what I know what I could do for this song. But sometimes I would have to look at the sheet music and listen for a little while and go, what's my angle? What's my way in here? And then find something and go, oh, I never noticed that before. That's really cool. So a lot of times I was learning about these things just minutes before posting a video about it. So I was learning too, because I don't, thankfully, maybe a little bit more so now, but I don't, for the most part, listen to things with that crazy critical part of my brain going, let me listen to all these little things and all these, like I can pretty much shut that part of my brain off. And I do try to, otherwise it tends to not be enjoyable anymore, which I don't want to ever happen to me. That would be sad. So, but I can turn it on at a moment's notice. So if I go to look at the sheet music and then go, all right, what's going on here? Let's find an angle. And for, what used to be on TikTok before they gave everybody, 10-minute videos was it had to be under 60 seconds. So, and in the early times, I was doing an intro before everyone. Oh, welcome to the MT. Tell me breakdown. And so that took up, that always took up 5 or 6 seconds at the beginning of every video. So it was like, what is one angle I can get into, explain it to someone like they're 5, and get out, get in and get out. Right. And that became the MO for everything that I did.
Because from what I understand, what was important to you was making sure that a viewer who didn't, understand music theory or, who wasn't as familiar with these concepts would still be able to understand it. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. I did not want this to just appeal to people who are composers and who understood music theory, jargon, and all that nonsense. And that has been and continues to be the most difficult thing about this whole thing. You can explain lyrics to almost anybody, because it's the English language, and like people go, I can talk, I know words, like I understand how this works, which is also, the flip side of that is everybody thinks they can write a lyric without knowing how hard it is to actually write a good one, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's harder to explain music to people who don't know music. And sometimes I'm not able to. There are things that people will ask me to do sometimes. I want you to talk about this. And I will look at it and try to and like there is no way for me to talk about this without using jargon that you're not going to understand. So sometimes that happens. But I really do try, and it is the hardest thing about this is to break down music in a way that someone who doesn't have that musical vocabulary can understand. Right. And so generally what I found is that the best way to do that is to combine the music with the text and to go, do you hear what's going on in the text? Do you hear what's happening in the music? And do you hear how one thing reinforces the other? And once you bring that to somebody's attention, they go, oh, I hear that. Yeah, right. I never heard that before, but that's really cool. Yeah. And so that mostly became my way in, and almost every video I've ever made about that is some combination of that for that reason. Yeah.
I want to ask you about Disney because you're a Disney fan, and a lot of your videos have been about Alan Menken music, Lin-Manuel Miranda's Disney music, and I guess the question that I had was that spanning the decades from the Disney Renaissance, which is like the 90s, I guess technically Mermaid, like 80, 89, Alan Menken stuff, Lion King, into the little 80s period, the Tarzan and Brother Bear. I love Brother Bear. And into the I guess I don't know what you would call this period, the new Disney with Frozen and Moana and Encanto and even Wish or things like that. What you would say is the Disney sensibility? What musically are the things, because you listen to these I Want songs, you listen to these moments, they're written by different people because Alan Menken has his thing, but there's Alan and Lynn and all these people. What would you say is the Disney sensibility, the thing that makes you go like, oh, that's a Disney song?
It's a really good question. Musically, it's very hard to say because a Lin-Manuel Miranda song does not sound like an Alan Menken song, and yet they both have this quality to them. And some of this is in the orchestral texture and who's orchestrating it, because you have the Danny Trubes of the world and the Doug Bestermans of the world who they do their thing, and it's like they know what they're doing, and it's like oh, that Disney sparkle is in the orchestration. You can but what I'm gonna say is, and it's not just musically, is that Disney, and it's not surprising that this conversation steers this way and that I cover Disney stuff, because it is musical theater writing.
Right.
That's what it is. These Disney movies are mini musicals. They are. And that started with Howard and Alan on Mermaid. And that, I think that's the sensibility, is like when we are telling a story through song, I mean, that it's sometimes Broadway feels Disney because of that. I would argue,
right,
you know, like
right.
there's just, it's this element of musical theater storytelling that Howard and Alan brought into the mix with Mermaid, that's then since continued. Of course, standing on the shoulders of giants like the Sherman Brothers, who,
right.
you know, it was similar, but it wasn't all the way there yet. And Howard was really relentless about that, and it, you know, we all have, look, as many wonderful, kind, and lovely things as I have to say about Alan Menken, because I adore his music. I mean, without Howard Ashman, it would not exist the way we know
Disney
it.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and that's carried through now on the Disney company side of things. They have to be smart who they're bringing in to do these things. They have because if you don't understand how to write for musical theater, you are not going to write a successful Disney score.
Sure.
Which we've seen happen.
Yeah.
You know, I met with a couple of the people on the animation teams. One of the things that we talked about at this lunch that we had was that some animators are frustrated at Disney right now, because what used to happen was you'd have the songwriters, like, you know, Alan and Howard were in the room with the storyboard artists, with the animators, and they were crafting this thing and building this thing together. And it does not happen that way anymore. You know, some of the talent that they get, and I'm not gonna, don't need to name any names, because, and they're all lovely people. This is nothing against them as people. It's just the way that the corporation works now, is these people are busy doing many, many other things. And so, you know, you're lucky if you can get 10% of their attention to, you know, write a song, and then it gets sent off to some department. And, you know, this guy who I met with at Disney was telling me, like, you know, I'm animating a sequence now that's to music, and I haven't heard any of the music yet. And we just have to hope that it's all going to sync up. It's like, well, this beat happens on this frame and this beat happens on this frame. And then so he said, a lot of us are frustrated because we're not getting the songwriters in the room to craft the thing with us. It's just not the way it works anymore. And which, you know, is largely a result of 3D animation, you know, of the whole CG thing. You know, it's been a whole, it takes 9 months to render something when, you know, a 2D animation artist could draw it in a week or two. So,
right.
And I had a meeting with Mark Dindal out in LA, who wrote he worked on Mermaid. He was in charge of animating Ariel's hair. It was his big, and then he directed and wrote the Chicken Little movie, and and the Emperor's New Groove. He directed that. So and so what he was telling me is, like, I really want to return to 2D animation, because he's like, if I tell one of my animators now that I want 6 chickens, he goes, great, I'll have them for you in 6 months. You know, that's not helpful. Like, if I can have them in 2 weeks, and there's just something. And now I hear that there's talk of 2D animation coming back. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I hear. Which, you know, this is another discussion, but it's, anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting though. Yeah, I don't think I realized that. But that's interesting that how I guess, when you pivot something one way for so long. And this is, I mean, look at, and this is fact, like we see it all the time. You're seeing it all the time. If you look at like Moana 2, what happened there? That was not, that's pretty much public knowledge. And granted, Moana 2, incredible commercial success. It was one of the biggest movies of last year.
But that was because Moana
won. Right. And yeah, anyway, we're not doing it. It's not doing it to disparage anything.
No, of course
it's
not.
Just more looking at, like, okay, this is what worked. This is why it works. And when you veer off far enough, you will see that it won't work. You know what I mean?
The same thing too with AI now. though as well, where it's like sometimes I think things are going to go so far in one direction that people are going to forget the like magic of human connection and mistakes and things that are like a little bit flawed that make things more creative.
Yeah, totally. and it makes it more valuable too. You know, it makes that you long for that more.
It's coming back to, you know, practical effects, things like that, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't understand, why do we need the water to look exactly like real water? Like, why do we need that? Do we need that? Is that something that we need? Like, how does that help the story? Like, I'm not, like, was there a problem with The Little Mermaid where we thought, oh, that ocean doesn't look real? Like, why do we need that?
Yeah.
How is that helping us?
Well, then,
about that movie versus like new animation too, and
Yeah.
people love nostalgia.
but then it's true too, because then you go and you make a live action version of it where you're animating the characters, right? Because you look at like How to Train Your Dragon or Stitch, like that's a live action version, but we're animating the characters anyway. You know. Anyway, but it's a funny dichotomy nonetheless.
And then then you also just put a fun point on this, I guess. What this also does is, because these movies take so much longer to make and they take so much more effort to make, that the timeline gets pushed out so many years down the road that Disney's got the next like 10 or 12 years already. Like, there's already
Mapped
stuff
out.
in the pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, the animator that I was talking to, he just finished working on the next Zootopia movie, and he's like, I don't even think there's another musical coming up for us until Frozen whatever. Yeah. And that's, still, he's like, that's still 2 years away from us being able to animate that.
Right.
So.
And it's funny too. It's funny because then, if those movies are not successes, you suffer a much more major consequence because of all of the time that it took to get to that end result. Taking it back real quick to the MT, I want to talk about this program now that you're offering with the MT, and I guess give me the details of the paid program that you're offering.
Yeah, so there's a couple points to this. I run a program for songwriters, so musical theater songwriters or anybody who wants to write songs, really. And I would take people who've never written a song before. We take people who are working on their second or third EP. So what it consists of essentially are three main components. So we've got video modules that I've recorded. That's like a sort of like a collegiate curriculum in songwriting. And then we've got a community, like a forum, built in, all of our songwriters who can share work for feedback, and I get feedback from me, and I'm very active in that as well. And then we also do I run 2 live group coaching calls every week. They're 2 hours each, and so I teach a little bit. People share their work. We get feedback from the group, and they get feedback from me. And there's also some smaller cohort support. So all in all, it's about 325 hours a year of live coaching support that we offer. Wow. Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. And then I also, within that, run a musical theater writing program.
And this is all within the MT, it's called,
yeah,
right?
with the MT Songwriting Studio, yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. That's really, really cool. It's called transformational songwriting, right?
Yeah, when I first started it, we called it Transformational Songwriting. I called it Transformational Songwriting, and recently I've rebranded it to the MT Songwriting Studio.
Yeah, how much have you found it to help you in your own work? Like, almost in reverse,
Oh, a lot, actually. The nice thing about having so many different perspectives and people in this program from all over the world, people in Australia and Russia, you name it, they're everywhere, is that it gives me new perspective on things too. So I'm constantly learning as I'm doing this. It's been really great for me, and I love to teach. So it's been great for me, and it's allowed me to do what I want to do in my life.
Because you have so many people from all over the world, are you finding different cultural sensibilities that will be like within their work, or even barriers that you're
Yeah, actually, I mean, not so much musically yet, but lyrically for sure, because I have people whose English isn't their first language, and and it's really interesting. I mean, it's been interesting for me to listen to songs that are written in other languages, even though I can only be so helpful when that's the case, because it's hard. I don't only speak English, so. But it has been really interesting to see what people write about too, because I think culturally that's there are differences everywhere. The things that people choose to write about, like it's just everybody has their own unique lens, and that they're sharing their experiences through whatever that lens is, and it's really great to not only have the white American lens on all that stuff. It's nice to be seeing things from all
these different perspectives. Yeah,
it's cool.
I want to ask you about time stops a little bit, because this is how we know you.
That's right.
Kirsten, lovely Kirsten, she booked time stops. This happened, I guess you mentioned if you did your first video in 2021, middle of 22, right? Mm-hmm. So was that the first rendition of it, or did you guys do it before that?
Yeah, that was, we did, it was, the whole thing was backwards. Yes, we did a full production before we ever.
We got requested for an audition for one of the characters on Backstage.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. I did for Evan's character. Yeah. Was it Evan's character, or was it? I can't remember. But it was one. It was one of the guys. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you guys did a fully.
He was 18 years old.
No, that's not true. 19. Yeah, you watch it. No, but so I guess so. You guys did a full staged production at the Kravis Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is beautiful, by the way. Like the Kravis Center is beautiful. That whole area is gorgeous. Yeah. And you guys did a full stage production before you did a reading or a workshop or anything?
Yeah, I mean, we did we might have had one like Zoom reading,
informal thing,
but yeah.
Talk to me about how the idea came to you, how you got to working with, is it Bonnie is that her name?
Bonnie.
Yeah. How you met her, who wrote the book?
Yes. So Bonnie wrote the book, and she had previously written another musical a year or two before that. And our mutual acquaintance is Michael Moritz, who is a multi-award-winning Broadway producer and record, recording guy, whatever. So I met him on the From Broadway with Love concert that we did for the Sandy Hook benefit, which is where I grew up in 2013. Yeah. So we met through that. And he has since basically called me for every gig that involves songwriting that's come across his desk, because we have a great relationship, and he knows that I deliver work on time, and it's usually relatively good. So she needed a new songwriter for this project, and so he called me. He and Chad called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So that was a commissioned project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that wasn't like a normal, normally you just enter into a collaboration agreement with somebody and you get paid on the back end, but that was actually a commission project for me.
Wow. And it just happened to be your favorite theme, time. That's
sort of
funny.
Yeah. I mean, the show was not originally called that. I won't. It doesn't matter what it was called before. But I don't even like. To be honest with you, I don't even like what it's called now. But I haven't been able to come up with anything better, so that's what it is.
Sure.
That was the first song I wrote for it, though. Was Time Stops, the song that Norbert sang.
It is a beautiful song.
Yeah.
I share that. I love that theme of time, and I think it's so interesting. And it's strangely reflected in some of my favorite musicals. It's funny, me and Kirsten and I teach Angel's Age, and we were at our children's theater, and our teacher has since passed away, Rosemary Callahan. I shout her out all the time, but we were doing Beauty and the Beast, and she had mentioned or Melissa rather had mentioned her favorite theme within shows was love. Like love was her, that was it. And I had thought to myself, I was like, oh, I wonder what mine is. And then I was like, oh yeah, time for sure, because I'm noticing just time. Like I'm like Merrily is one of my favorite musicals. Groundhog Day is one of my favorite musicals, and so that theme is just really interesting to me. I guess. Talk about how that theme runs in Tick Tick Boom, even in that video you did on 3090. Talk to me about implementing that theme of time. You know what I mean? And using these things that we talked about with text painting and stuff like that within music.
Yeah. So, in that, the best way I can talk about that in terms of the show, this particular show, in terms of Time Stops, is in that song itself. If you listen to the accompaniment of that, it's written in 9/8, which is kind of a crazy time signature to write in. Who writes in 9/8? But it's basically 3. So in the bass, you've got this bum 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 bum. This just dotted quarter notes, just ticking away, and that in my mind anyway, is representing the inexorable movement of time, and how the character who's singing this has lost his daughter, and how life just goes on. As much as you want to sort of linger in the past and hold on to things that have slipped away from you, like, the world doesn't stop, except for when he sees her, right? And he has a vision of her, and all of a sudden everything falls out of the accompaniment at that point. Time stops. So that's my way of showing that. So,
right.
And then as I was actually telling Norbert when we were doing this last reading,
Norbert Leobutz.
Because I wanted him to understand what I was doing here, so I was explaining that to him, and also how even though the bass note is staying the same, or the treble, there's like a B flat and an E flat that are playing dotted quarters, that stays the same, and the bass, the notes are moving underneath it, so it's like how the ground is sort of shifting underneath him, even though the time is sort of marching on the top. So it's there are things that we do as songwriters that an actor might never realize until you bring it to their attention, and all of a sudden they go, oh, that's interesting, I can use that.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's probably the best way I can illustrate the concept
I
of
think
time
as an actor, I would encourage all songwriters to communicate those things, because I do think you use them. I know you do. Your videos, in certain respects, have informed some of the way I view a piece, the way I, So yes, please, songwriters, if you have, share it.
Do it. Actors want to know.
Yeah, for sure. With Time Stops from West Palm Beach, you guys did another reading workshop, I believe, right? And then you guys did the most recent one, which was Kirsten was a part of, and Elizabeth Stanley and Norbert Leobutz. Talk to me about the future of that show. And also, you guys did a cast recording. Isn't that right?
We did. We did one right after we closed at the Kravis Center. We did one.
It's in the abyss somewhere.
It's in the abyss somewhere. I don't even have it. So
yeah.
But yeah, it exists somewhere out there. The future of the show, who the heck knows? I don't know. As the songwriter, I'm like waiting to hear from
the powers that be.
The powers that be. What's
right?
If anything's gonna happen?
That workshop, hearing your music sung by Elizabeth Stanley and Norbert Leobutz, I was melting into my seat.
James Tulane,
James Tulane, oh my gosh, yeah. I was literally melting into my seat the whole time.
And you. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I would come into the car because they would pick me up from rehearsal sometimes, and they'd be like, my voice recorded. Someone.
Yeah, right.
You could hear it.
Yeah, right.
I could have this forever.
Yeah. That never gets old. I have to say, hearing your music sung by really competent people, included, never gets old. Never gets old.
While we're on this theme of time, I want to talk about time signatures and time signatures and key changes. What inspires a lot of pop music is 4/4. You did, which is common time. You did a video on Die With a Smile recently, which is in threes, right? Or 6/8, right?
Yeah.
3/4, 6/8. And I guess, and a lot of doo-wop, a lot of 60s stuff is in that. What informs a time signature? Removing it from pop music, I just brought that up as an example, but what informs, where do you go okay, this needs to be in this? What do you because in musical theater, that also is, factors into the story element.
It does. And I, having not writing a lot of pop music, I don't know. I don't know. But, or any number of things can inform that, because you're not using, at that point, you're not really using character to inform things. It's like this, whatever the songwriter kind of wants to do is what you do. But, and then obviously there are certain styles that evolve to be a certain way. So all that doo-wop music, how did that end up being, based in those triplet three feels? I don't actually know how that happened. I don't know. But anyway, in terms of musical theater, everything stems from character. So any choice that you make is going to stem from a place of character. So, let's see. I'm trying to think of an example to go with here. So, okay, this is something that I wrote, and I can speak to it because I know what I was thinking when I did. For the Count of Monte Cristo thing that I wrote in college, there was a song that took place on Carnival. So it was this big, celebratory dance number. And it was also a time where one of the characters who goes to visit Carnival is like so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. He's like turned around 1,000 times, doesn't know anything. So there's a chaos happening on stage. And so one of the ways I chose to represent that was in this constantly shifting time signature. So it was like lots of 5/8 and 6/8 and 7/8. And so there's kind of constantly losing a beat or gaining a beat. So it always felt like you're like missing something. And that helped inform that moment dramatically. And there was a song in Time Stops that we cut that Emma's character used to sing called Take Me Away. And you remember that one? Take me away, Charlie. Do-da-do-da. And so she's, at that point in the show, she's kind of like losing it a little bit. And so what I chose to write that in 7/8 because, you can write in 7/8 in such a way where it feels natural, but I wanted it to feel like there was almost a beat missing. And so every phrase, it's like it's almost like your heart skips a beat or something, or you miss an eighth note, and that was built totally from a place of character and where she is in that moment of time. Content dictates form, right? And lots of lullabies tend to be written in 3/4 because culturally that's kind of in our Western musical language and vocabulary. That's what we've come to, sort of recognize. A lot of lullabies just happen to be in 3/4. If a lot of waltzes are in 3/4, right? So anytime you're, writing a dance scene at a party, in a certain time frame, chances are you're probably going to end up writing in some kind of 3/4 because that's what, stylistically, that's what the moment calls for. But what I will also say was that there's this element of stability and instability, and there are many ways in a song that you can create a feeling of stability or instability. One of those ways is with time signatures. So if you are constantly shifting time signatures, it's going to lend a little bit more instability to something. If you're keeping your time signature relatively the same, you're lending some more stability to that moment. So then the question is, what does the moment call for? What does the dramatic moment call for? What is the character feeling in this moment? Does that suggest something more stable, or does that suggest something more unstable? Or are there moments of the song that might suggest more instability, in which case maybe we drop a beat here? And one of the things that I'm grateful that I learned in composition in college that my professor taught me is like, you don't feel like you have to be a slave to the beat all the time. Like you can, the tyranny of the beat doesn't always matter. Like you can, if you don't need a beat, give it up here or add one if you need an extra one. And I was like, oh, it gave me a lot of freedom, in thinking, all right, well, if this moment calls for an extra beat, like why not have a measure of 5 in there? Like, why? That's not against the rules. Like you can do whatever you want. Yeah. And so, time signatures is one way that you can create that. There are harmonic ways you can create that too. If you use a chord that's a little bit more crunchy, that can add a little bit more instability. If you use something that's more, triadic and more diatonic, then you lend more stability to that moment. Yeah. There are ways that you can do that lyrically. Maybe you delay a rhyme for some reason. Maybe a character is waiting for something to happen, and you can symbolize that moment by making the second line longer than the first line, or making the, if you have an A-B rhyme scheme, maybe you make that last B line just a little bit longer. You extend that, make us wait for the rhyme the same way the character is waiting to, so there are ways of doing that. And those are all different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what's so perfect about musical theater in that way, because you brought up the pop reference, and when even reading it to you, any reading work just to you, you go, this is the form in which it's made for. It's made for you to watch it live, for you to have a live reaction. I can manipulate your experience by changing a time signature. I mean, I forgot exactly which show, I think it was Floyd Collins, that I'm in almost this, like you said, turning off that brain, the music brain. I'm just in this zone of, I know what's going to happen. I know, at least musically, I'm feeling, all right, I'm getting into this. Yeah. And when he wanted me not to, and I'm going to drop the beat, I'm going, whoa, wait a minute, that was... And subconsciously, now I'm completely focused on the plot. Yeah. And the whole audience just goes, and he can do that. And that's why, at least from what I see, I don't know if you noticed it as well, but that's why it is so much more... It can be so much more justified to actually do something like that in musical theater.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite examples of delaying a rhyme or delaying making these lines longer is Steps of the Palace in Into the Woods. This is more than just malice. Better stop and take stock while you're standing here stuck on the steps of the palace. That's like he makes you wait for it, right? He doesn't just give it to you. It's like she's making a decision. She's thinking through a thing. So yes, we're delaying that moment. Yeah. And it's also one of my other favorite ways of doing this is delaying the tonic, like delaying do or home. Making us wait for that that tonic chord paired with the melodic note that matches. Totally, all the time. Making us wait for that is a really it's a commonly used technique, but it's a really effective technique.
Right. You talk about it a lot in the Beauty and the Beast video, where you're mentioning like how to get to where the chorus lands, we wait for it. That's why the resolve is so soothing and feels
yes, right,
comforting.
Yep.
Talk to me, because we've talked so much about Sondheim. I want to ask you. I think you've already answered this question honestly, but your favorite Sondheim musical, is it Into the Woods?
It's not.
Really?
Strangely. I love Into the Woods, and I think there's a great craft in Into the Woods, but my favorite Sondheim musical is Sunday in the Park.
Sunday in the Park. Yeah. Christian's is too, right?
Yeah.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
What about your thoughts? You mentioned it a lot when it was happening, and you got the signed vinyl of Here We Are. I feel like not enough people were talking about it. It's some of those things where it was like very like people knew about it, but it was for us, it was one of my favorite things I had ever seen. And you were there first preview.
I was there the first preview. Yeah, that was a crazy energy in that audience.
Yeah, right. I'm sure.
Yeah, that was insane. And I haven't really. I haven't really listened to it much since then. I've listened to a couple songs maybe since then. But it was. We'll talk about a weird one. It was the way I described it when I left was that was wonderfully weird. To me, it was just very Steve. But
yeah, right. Right.
And you notice like little things in there that are callbacks to other. He has a very. He's a very specific style.
Yeah.
All those minor seventh leaps and whatever. They're all over the place. But yeah, I don't have because I don't know. Like I don't know the show intimately. It's so hard for me to like speak super intelligently about it. But I will say that it was a delightful experience to be in that first group of people to ever really see it.
Yeah.
And to experience a Sondheim score that nobody had ever heard before. That was like
for us too.
Yeah.
And that was the last time that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that was the thing about it. It's like I'm sitting there going, this is the only time that a first audience will ever experience for the first time again a new Sondheim.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's pretty special.
Like it was.
And I think for what it's worth, I loved that show. I actually loved that show. I think the book is really clever. I thought it was directed beautifully.
Yeah.
We saw it 3 times.
Oh, that's great. Awesome.
So by that time we were going, okay. By the third time we were going, all right, I'm starting to see kind of the details. I'm starting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, the book is phenomenal.
It is.
Yeah.
David Ives produced a great book.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And I had, the great honor and privilege of meeting Sondheim twice.
Did you?
I had dinner at his house in Connecticut. Yeah.
Whoa.
He used to. I was, it was before I was like. I was too young to like really. It was before like I was a huge Sondheim fan. Like I appreciated him, but it wasn't like, yeah. But I wrote a show with a good friend of his, and Sondheim used to host these Friday night dinners at his house in Roxbury. I live about a half hour from there, so like Mia Farrow would be there sometimes, and Patti LuPone would show up, or you'd have all these people in the show, and just to chill, and everybody would sort of cook, and they'd sit down and have a meal and just talk, and it was like, it was a really cool. So I met him then, and then he came to do a master class at BMI, and I was sitting like as close to Christian as I was, and he there were 3 people that were presenting work, and then he would give some feedback, and I can't even imagine. I'm so glad it's not me up there. But he had somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was presenting something, and Steve was giving some feedback, and first of all, he's like, you all have to call me Steve. He's like, please, no, none of that Mr. Sondheim shit. He's like, you have to call me Steve. Like, okay. And so he's giving some feedback, and he looks at the guy who's working with us. He goes, by the way, you can disagree with me at any time. The guy was like, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Like, there's no way. But what was really funny about that meeting was that this guy that I had written the show with, who was a friend of his who's since passed away, had called Steve ahead of time to let him know that I was going to be there, so that I could introduce myself to him afterwards and whatever. So we rode the elevator down to the bottom of the World Financial Center where BMI happens, and my friends are all around, and so I go to shake hands with him. I said, Steve, this is so great and such a pleasure. And he goes, you're Brett, right? Like, and all my friends were like, he just addressed you by name. It was a fun moment. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
But I'm happy
That's
I got a
pretty
chance to
special.
actually meet him and shake his hand before.
Yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
special.
But
That's great.
Anyway.
That's a great story.
neither here nor there.
When you talk about Sondheim's style being as specific as it is, how do you avoid when writing something making it the same? How do you avoid, there's a lot of criticism comes out of that from many different songwriters. When you hear something and you go, well, that sounds a lot. Oh, that sounds a little bit too much like, how do you avoid that from happening? That was actually something that Sondheim was incredibly self-conscious about, too.
Yeah, and for all of his self-consciousness, he still comes through in every.
I was going to say, I don't think
he writes.
It's one of those things where it's a style that you recognize, but none of it sounds the same.
Yeah, you're not necessarily. It's not like It's not like Andrew Lloyd Webber who will use the exact same song in another show. It's like not like like Sondheim has there are certain intervals he likes, there are certain harmonic sounds that he likes, and
right.
Those can carry over from show to show. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like as writers, we have our own style. Like we fall into our we are who we are. And I think as long as you're making choices for characters that are right for that moment and they're dramatically true and honest and authentic to the thing that you're writing, I don't have a problem with Schwartz is the same thing. You'll notice every show that he writes there's something like almost every show is like very Schwartzian, and why not? Like, who the hell cares? Although I will say the person who I think, and I'm interested to see if you have an opinion on this, the composer still living, who I think is the greatest chameleon working on Broadway these days. I'm wondering if you have any
David
idea.
Yazbek.
Oh, David Yazbek's a good answer though. He's great. Not who I was thinking of, but he's great. I feel like Ghetto, maybe sometimes, but he has a sound too. I'm thinking Janine Tesori.
I love Janine.
When you're talking about Thoroughly Modern Millie, Shrek, Fun Home.
Yeah. Kimberly.
To me, Kimberly, like to me, those almost none of those things sound like they don't. If you listen to Thoroughly Modern Millie and then you listen to Fun Home, are you going to think that's written by the same composer?
Right.
Like I wouldn't think that. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
And and that's really cool that she's able to do that.
Right.
Not everybody can, and I don't necessarily even think everybody should. I mean, that's just what she chooses to do, and she's been very successful at it. It's great. But it's like I think, and here's the other thing. I think as writers, as songwriters, we are drawn to certain kinds of projects and certain kinds of stories, and because we're drawn to those things, like it's like our sound is drawn to those things. So, a show like Sunday in the Park, and a show like there are similarities. If the Pacific Overtures, for example, or whatever. Like there are commonalities in the worlds of those stories where it's not so surprising that a similar sound is going to make its way into those projects. Whereas something like Thoroughly Modern Millie and something like Fun Home are like completely different, very different stories. Millie is is pastiche in a lot of ways because it's set in the 1920s. It's like a whole other thing. But you have to decide what the sound world is for the story that you're creating. And I think as songwriters, we're drawn by our own personal, emotional cores to certain things. So maybe it's not so much of a surprise that that our sounds tend to cross over, like JRB too. You know, his has a pretty signature sound.
Yep.
You know,
and it's almost like if it ain't broke type of thing, where if you're doing one thing that was similar from the last, and it's evoking a similar emotion, you know, it's not the same riff, but it's the same feeling.
Yeah.
And you have that way of telling that feeling. Actors have a similar thing with choices.
Yeah, for
some are chameleon actors, some are.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, and we adore Yazbek. That's why I brought him up.
Oh, I love
he was like the first person who I was like, oh yeah, like you think about, we mentioned it on the pod before, Band's Visit versus Tootsie versus Dead Outlaw. Like, what in the world?
Totally.
I want to ask you about, Pastiche, that's what you like triggered. I was like, yes. Because you mentioned Pacific Overtures, and that's what made me go like, navigating Pastiche, adopting a different style of music into your language. What are the keys to doing that in a way that's successful and not, inauthentic? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I would say about that is that when you look at hallmarks of certain styles of music, there are things that make them what they are. So, for example, when you look at, I think a great example of this is ragtime. Mm-hmm. So when you look at ragtime music, not the musical, but when you look at ragtime music, there are a couple staples of that genre, right? One of them is the stride piano in the left hand with the syncopated rhythms in the right hand. So as a composer, when you're looking to bring pastiche into something and also looking to make it original, then what I find to be the most successful way of doing that is to go, what is like the not the one element, but what is an element of this style of music that I can carry over and then change the other elements of that style to insert my own thing into that. And so one of the one of the reasons I think ragtime is so successful is the way that Stephen Flaherty and also Bill Brown's orchestrations help that as well. How that element of the steady quarters in the left hand and the syncopation in the right hand are brought into almost every style of music in that show, from the Eastern European style of music to obviously to the American style itself. Into the black, the music from the black community in that show. Like, it's woven all throughout, and it's done so masterfully that it is ragtime, but it's also very much Stephen Flaherty, and so that's just that would be my advice to anybody looking to insert some element of pastiche into the show, is find the element that you can keep the same and then change the other parts of it. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's super interesting. Did you have We're jumping. Did you have any involvement in the Ratatouille musical?
Okay, so here's the Ratatouille story. You ready? Okay.
The Ratatouille.
Yeah. So the story with Ratatouille is, before that happened, before any of that started happening on TikTok, I had been developing my own adaptation of Ratatouille. I've always loved that movie. It's one of my absolute favorites. And it's like so in my DNA and in my wheelhouse to write it. I have like 7 completed songs for it. Don't tell Disney. Or maybe tell.
Cruise line adaptation.
Yeah, right.
So one of the reasons why I had done it, generally as a songwriter, I don't like spinning my wheels on projects that have no chance of getting done, because, I have limited time in my life. So let's focus on projects that have a chance of happening. But the reason that I did that was because I have a friend who was in AP Bio with Patton Oswalt.
Oh, yeah.
And had a direct connection. Damn. And was like, if you write this stuff, send it to me. I will pass it off to Patton, and maybe we can talk to Disney Pixar and see if we can. So I was like, okay. And then the TikTok thing happened. But I was still a baby TikToker at the time. Like, it was right at the dawn of me getting somewhere. And so I wasn't big enough to be included in that project. And it was so frustrating, because then I just had to shelve it, and it was a big pain. So
now,
up until
right now, up until this very moment.
Look, Disney Pixar, if you ever want to turn Ratatouille into a musical, I'm your guy.
Yeah,
I have the songs.
Well, hey, Coco was announced that they were in. They watch all of us. Coco's in development, so Pixar is adapting. They're looking to adapt those things into musicals. They're looking to adapt Pixar stuff.
And that would be so fun. Like, think of what you could, all the things you could do, the innovations that you could have with, making Remy work as a character on stage. Like, that'd be so interesting. Yeah. Anyway.
When you're writing, do you I forgot who I was reading where it was like, do you think about the limitations on stage? Like, do you ever think about, I forget, I'm like trying to remember who it was that said like, that you just can't, that you kind of just have to leave that up to someone. Because I remember I was reading a David Lindsay Abaire play called, beats me, I can't remember right now. Ripcord,
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was called. And in the play they're going skydiving. And I thought to myself, how in the world did they manage to, and somehow it was produced, it was on Broadway, it happened. But are you thinking about those, are you like, no, this can never happen on stage? Or is that something that you're actively trying not to do?
I think there are some things you have to, I think it's irresponsible not to think about some of these things. While also knowing that there are a million creative ways of doing things and that smarter people than I will probably be able to figure it out.
Right.
But I think when you are talking to a producer about something and they're like, how are you envisioning this happening? I mean, the wrong answer is, well, other people will figure it out. Like that's not the right answer. Yeah. So like you should have some idea of maybe like how we might be able to get creative.
Yeah.
I mean, for a project like on the scope of something that would be produced by Disney, come on, like somebody's gonna figure it out. Like, right. There's so much money, but but if you're writing an original show and the show has pyrotechnics and elephants and all these things, like you gotta be realistic on some level.
Yeah, right.
Like you gotta make somebody want to produce the thing.
Yes.
It's that you don't want to run the risk of somebody seeing that and going, oh, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole because that's going to be too expensive. Yes, you have to consider these things, but also knowing that there are people who,
can
make their job to figure these things out.
Right. Let's talk about Sondheim's chair. First question: why you didn't bring it today? Secondly,
heavy.
Where did you get it at the dinner that you went to with them?
Yes, I picked it up and ran out of the house with it before you could catch me.
So you bought Sondheim's chair from his house in Turtle Bay in New York.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Where did you find it?
So, they had, after he passed, they had an auction. They ran in New York, and they had. It was a little. I was invited to it.
Wow.
Because
fancy
social media,
Wow.
Every now and then I get invited to something cool.
Yeah.
So they had like a pre-showing where they had everything laid out and not all of the furniture. I don't even think I saw the chair there, but they had a whole bunch of other stuff that was going to be auctioned off at the auction that was going to take place. It was like the next week or whatever. So I knew. So Rob and I both went together. I took him with me, and then we were both he was gonna go to the auction live, but we ended up we watched it online. But we were determined to get something of Sondheim there, knowing full well that most of the stuff was going to be insanely expensive.
Right.
Like a box of his pencils went for like $10,000.
Oh my god.
But
he was very particular about the type of pencil and
the black wings and but still, people want to have a small piece of him and they paid the top dollar for it. But the furniture went pretty cheap because most people don't want to have to move furniture around. And so there were a pair of chairs, two wingback chairs that he had at his house in Turtle Bay, and when they came up, they were like $400 a piece, and so it was like $800-900 for the set. And so Rob and I were like, let's do it. So we bid on it and we got them. So we each got a chair. So he has one in his apartment and I have one at my house.
Funny. So, wow, that's pretty funny. That's great.
And I just came with my car. They both fit in the back of my car with the seats folded down, and it was meant to be.
That's
Absolutely.
Great. That's funny. Can we talk about the Library of Congress? You recently got to go there, I guess like a year or so ago.
Been a few times.
And tell me about some of the in your most recent trip, you posted the original lyrics to Prince Ali from Aladdin. So I guess talk to me about some of the stuff that you were able to discover there, because I've never been, but I've always wanted to go.
Oh, it's so cool if you get the chance. You have to go, and it's so easy. Anybody can. You just get a card, and you can go anytime. So we. Rob is always my partner for these things, so we always go together. He was the one that turned me on to it anyway. We looked at the Oscar Hammerstein estate, so they have all of the collection, I should say, not estate. They have all the original lyrics and letters to his family, the boxes and boxes and boxes of all this stuff. And you can just take a couple boxes out at a time, and you go through them. They let you take pictures of anything you want. And so that we went through the Howard Ashman collection and saw a whole bunch of things in there. It is so, there's just something so otherworldly about holding his notebook, the stuff that he has, all the his Little Mermaid sketches and things, story notes and whatnot, and just it's to feel that history in your hands, to hold the original lyrics with the hand when Hammerstein is making changes to stuff from The Sound of Music, and you can see him writing on the legal pad no, not this, do this instead. And almost all of them are in because they keep them between plastic, and then you can take them out when you want to look at them, but they're it's he wrote on them yesterday. They're so meticulously well preserved. And then you occasionally will find stuff because there's some crossover. So in the Hammerstein collection, there are some letters that Steve wrote to Hammerstein and some correspondence between them, because was in Hammerstein's possession. And so you see the worlds of these two, giants sort of colliding, and you're holding it in your hand, and it's just Sondheim writing a letter to Hammerstein from Williams College being hey, would you mind if we use the curtains from the the production of Oklahoma for our production of the it's just insane stuff that you can't find anywhere else. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And then we also had the chance to listen to, because they have an audio collection as well, a bunch of audio collections. We listened to the entire BMI presentation that Alan and Howard did for Little Shop of Horrors. They went through the whole musical and presented pretty much the whole thing, and then listening to Lehman Engel give them notes and feedback about it afterwards. Wow. It's so cool listening to the songs that you're oh, I'm glad they cut that one. It's but for the most part, this show stayed remarkably the same. Intact. And to be clear, Howard was not a member of the BMI workshop. Alan was, but they were writing the show together, so they brought Howard in to just to present on that particular show. But yeah, it's pretty wild listening to that, to Howard and Alan singing the entire score of Little Shop.
That's incredible.
It's something else. It's really, really
that's
cool.
That's amazing.
And now they've just acquired the Sondheim collection.
I was going to say they just announced that because I remember Sondheim that when he had passed, they said that all of that stuff was going to go to Library of Congress. All the things that he had designated to go there was going to go there, and they just announced that it's now readily available, and you could go and check it out.
We're gonna go.
The Sondheim collection.
Taking lots of pictures.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been to New York Public Library, and you see certain things that were faxes from Hal Prince to Sondheim about telling him about Evita or things like that, or keeping him updated, and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
So cool holding that history in your hand.
It's so great that it is preserved in that way.
Animation. It all goes
right. So I want to ask you about state of the industry stuff. What have you seen recently that you loved? What are you most looking forward to that's coming? Things like that. Because I know you're very actively at the theater.
I am. What have I seen recently? I'm trying to think. That I liked. Maybe that's harder. Yeah. I don't want to talk about the stuff that I didn't like. What are shows that are playing right now?
This season, I think.
What have I seen?
Probably my favorite thing.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I saw Gypsy. Obviously, had to see Gypsy. I say what you want. I thought Audra McDonald was a revelation in that role. I really do. I just thought it was great. So that was a great night at the theater. Oh my God.
She gave everything.
She left it all out there.
Yeah.
And Danny Bernstein was phenomenal too. And Joy, which was great.
I love Joy.
Everybody was fantastic, and I just thought it was a really great production. The orchestra was great. Everything about it was. I really liked it. I know there were some people that had other thoughts. I loved it. So,
yeah.
What else?
I think maybe Happy Ending was a big one this year.
I didn't see that yet.
Oh, you didn't see it yet?
No,
okay,
I've listened. Gotcha. I've heard the score. I've listened to it a number of times in the car. Yeah. I absolutely love the score. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
You got to catch it. It is. It's really interesting, and we're not breaking news here by saying maybe Happy Ending is like phenomenal. It's great. Yeah. We loved it.
And I loved the craft in that songwriting and how there's there's some American songbook and then also some contemporary stuff, and the two worlds sort of mixed together. And it's really beautiful the way they did that. I love that.
Have you looked into, because looking ahead, have you looked into any of like the Two Strangers Carry a Cake in New York?
I know almost nothing about that.
Yeah, that one has a cast recording that came out from London. Queen of Versailles starting up, and they just started rehearsals. Ragtime is you saw the City Center production.
I did twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it, so I really, really want to see it.
That was the first time I went. I was sitting up in the nosebleeds, and then the second time we were sitting like fifth row orchestra, like and that was the closing performance of it at City Center. And that evening is that is one of the top 3 theatrical experiences of my entire life.
Wow,
being in that space for that performance. There were 7 standing ovations at different points throughout the show that night.
Really?
Me either.
Yeah.
That's it was absolutely insane. And I was sobbing. Of course, everybody else was too. So I didn't feel bad. Yeah. And Lynn and Steven were there.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm like trying to think of like Lost Boys is coming in the spring. I can't wait to see that.
That's right. Yep.
That one I'm really looking forward to. I heard some of the music from it and it sounds really cool. Yeah. What are some of the revivals coming? There's Floyd Collins.
Floyd Collins, I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, that one was great. Floyd Collins was great. I'm trying to think of there's a couple of revivals that something was Mamma Mia is on right now.
Yeah.
But there was one revival that I'm like blanking that's coming on in the spring. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I can read about these things and then I forget about them almost as soon as
until they're here.
Until they're here. I just can't keep it in my head.
That's what it is. They have to come here for us. Okay, so we have a fun game to play with you.
Okay.
And let me move this here. So we are gonna play, because we've been talking so much about musical theater. Mm-hmm. We're gonna play a little musical theater trivia game. We're gonna give you like a couple of seconds of a song and see if you recognize it. The catch is about all of these songs. All of the songs that I'm gonna give you are songs that you have talked about, broken down on the MT, on TikTok and Instagram.
Okay. Don't hold out too much hope for me here. I'm notoriously bad at these kinds of games.
So I'm going to connect myself to this Bluetooth speaker. This Bluetooth speaker is provided by Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes.
All right.
Yeah. Really what happened was we forgot our speaker and this one happens to be here. So thank you to Vin for having it here. Okay. Are we connected?
I'm going to embarrass myself now.
No, you're going to be great. I gave you a huge... There we go.
Ready for connection.
Okay.
Aren't we all, though?
What song is that, Brett? Ready for connection. Okay. Here we go. I created an album and everything.
So prepared.
I know. Okay. Okay, here we are. We're starting. First one.
Okay. Oh, man. You
guys know it, right?
You know who's really good at this? Rob is really good at this. You know who's really bad at this? Brett is really good at this. Ba-da-da-da-da. I should know that.
I'll give it to you one more. Oh, one more. Sorry.
Oh, bless my soul.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Zero to
I
hero.
cheated a little bit there with that.
Zero to hero. Okay, here's
of course, right.
Here's another one.
Oh, Dear Theodosia. Okay.
There you go. Dear Theodosia. Dear Theodosia. These are easy ones.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Hey, that was only 2 seconds, so I was trying to now I was like,
I probably would not have gotten it if it was just the opening band.
Up until that was naughty. For those who don't know, that was naughty from Matilda. Okay, here's another.
Into the woods.
It's a trick question. What song from Into the Woods that starts that way?
Is that Hello Little Girl?
Yeah. Whoa, that was good. I wouldn't have gotten that one. That one was hard.
Okay.
I wouldn't have gotten that one. Okay.
Oh, Out There, Hunchback.
Wow, that was another hard one. I didn't think you were gonna get that one. That one was
World is cruel. World is wicked.
That was good. Okay, here's another.
I have no idea. What is that? I have no idea.
It's a little tricky. I wouldn't have known it either, honestly. It's from Prince of Egypt. That's Through Heaven's Eyes.
Oh,
yeah.
Wouldn't have gotten it from that.
Yeah.
Love that
Okay,
song.
here's I have 3 more.
Oh.
Do you know it, Chris? Do you guys know it? This one almost feels like a trick one. I'll give you a hint. It's not from a musical. It's not from a musical.
It's from a movie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's a film score, it sounds like.
I'll give it to you again.
Yeah, one more time.
I'll give you a little more.
When
She Loved Me.
When She Loved Me.
Yeah, When She Loved Me. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, 2 more.
Yeah.
Angel knows it. This one I have to be very careful with because she's singing so soon. My fingers
Wait,
clipped here.
one more time.
Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay, wait, sorry. It's okay, stop. No, when I press rewind, it goes to a different song. Okay.
Why don't I know this? That's not Beauty and the Beast, is it?
No.
What is it?
It's a Sondheim.
Oh, it's a Sondheim one? Yeah.
God, you're
Why don't I recognize it?
I am kind of close.
recognize it.
All
What
right,
is
I'll
it?
continue it.
Oh. Literally just did it yesterday.
That's By the Sea. All right, the last one.
Just did that yesterday, Brett. Great. Awesome. How quickly I forgot. Being Alive
To round it out. All right, we have just 2. That was I should write. So that was musical theater trivia. So
Okay, I didn't do as badly as I thought I would do.
No, you did pretty good, actually. You did pretty good. Okay, the question that we ask every time is we always manifest a dream guest. So we want you to manifest someone to be sitting in this chair to come on our podcast. Could be anyone.
Ooh.
The speaker is pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it lights up.
Oh, man.
We've got so much that spanned the gamut from Jonathan Groff to Carol Burnett to Debbie Allen.
Well, if I'm gonna stay with my songwriter theme here, then get Alan in here.
Alan Menken, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it any day, Alan. You let me know when you're free. All right.
Yeah, I always wanted to I do have a direct connection to Alan, although I haven't used.
Have you ever met him?
Used it. I've not met him, although I've been this close to him 3 times, but I've never actually met him.
That's funny.
He's from Connecticut too, no?
He
No.
was in Westchester.
Okay.
Yeah. I met him once, and he was the best. He was the kindest, the sweetest.
Oh, he's great. Well, I know his
wonderful.
his music assistant, Aaron
Okay,
Kenny.
Gotcha. Very cool.
But yeah, I've always for years I've been toying with the idea of doing a podcast. I don't think I may never do it, but to sit down with these writers and just nerd out on the stuff that nobody ever asks them, the stuff that they just get into the craft of it all,
do it. We're highly encouraging of podcasts.
Yeah.
On our podcast, on our podcast, shockingly enough, we're pro podcast. Okay, our last question every time is we started by asking you who your I want to be like you as when you were a kid was, and now we want to ask you who is your I want to be like you now, and it could be someone in your career, it could be someone in your life, it could be whoever you'd like.
That's a very good question. Who do I want to be like? Man, it's can I talk through this a little bit?
Yeah, of course, do it.
It's interesting because I used to think of myself as a songwriter, like this was, and so, if I, for that I was like, well, I want to be like Alan Menken. I want to be like Stephen Schwartz. But like the past 5 years, especially, like I've sort of seen myself go through this transformation where I'm like much more of a multi-hyphenate now than I ever thought of myself as being before, because education and teaching to me is way more important to me now than I ever thought it would be. But I still consider myself, I still am a songwriter and a storyteller, and I'm also a parent. So, there's like that whole piece of it too. So is it so weird to like say that I don't know.
I think that's a great answer.
That I can think of anybody in my life who personifies all of those things in a way that I would.
That's a great answer.
I feel like I just want to grow into whatever I'm growing into.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that answer. Yeah, we've had that before, and I think that's a great answer. Yeah, not to disparage anyone else's answers. See, that's what I mean. This is the thing that I do all the time. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. You've been the best. This has been
pleasure.
You're our first composer too.
Oh, really?
You're our first composer.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good. I'll take
on
it.
the pod. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
I want to be like Brett Boles. There he is. I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Christian Cespedes. Special thanks to Angelina Cespedes, Kirsten Blue Kaiser, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, and of course, Brett Boles.